Hello and welcome to this channel. It's me. In our last episode we looked at how Facebook and Twitter are censoring free speech online with some of their latest antics. But it's not just Silicon Valley that is getting in on the act. Central banks all around the world have been looking for ways to track and trace your every move, both online and offline, with a cashless digital currency. Now most people think that central bank digital currencies or CBDCs are still years away, but that may not be the case. Last week, the International Monetary Fund, that's the I, announced that retail CBDCs could be launched within 24 months. And according to Christine Lagarde, head of the European Central Bank, they will become a feature of our daily lives in less than 2 years. So with that in mind, let us take a look at what the global elite are planning for us in this episode of our series, The Digital Cold War, Crypto and Censorship from Rome to Beijing. Let's get into it. Most people see cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum as a way out of the matrix. They offer an alternative to the centralized legacy financial system where governments and banks and control your money. But with a CBDC, governments want to have their cake and eat it too. They want the benefits of a digital currency without giving up the ability to control and manipulate people's behavior. A new report from the Atlantic Council has shed light on China's plan for its CBDC, which is called the digital yuan. The report reveals that Chinese authorities have been training 300,000 digital currency ambassadors across the country to promote the new currency and get people on board. This is being done under the guise of the Winter Olympics, which are being held in Beijing in February, and each ambassador is being paid $250 per month, plus other perks like insurance and travel allowances. According to the report, these digital currency ambassadors are required to attend classes for 2 weeks before receiving their red ID cards, which allow them to work as promoters for the currency. They are expected to help citizens download the digital yuan app, register for digital wallets, and exchange their cash for the digital currency. If you refuse, then you won't receive your monthly stipend. Interestingly, the report states that the ambassadors don't need to know anything about blockchain technology or cryptography. All they need to do is follow instructions and distribute the propaganda given to them by the Communist Party. Now what does this mean for those who don't want to comply? Well, anyone who refuses to use the digital currency will be met with punishment from the state. In China, not complying is simply not an option. The government will use every tool at its disposal to force people to adopt the digital yuan. And the first step in that process is mind control. You see, China's CBDC is more than just a currency. It's a tool of social control that the government can use to monitor and manipulate its citizens. The digital yuan will give the Chinese government unprecedented levels of control over its population. It will be able to track and trace every citizen's every move, and even control their access to basic necessities, like food and water. The CCP plans to link the digital yuan to a social credit system that rewards good behavior and punishes bad behavior. Citizens will be given points for things like making on-time payments and buying from approved merchants. Those with low scores will be denied access to loans, travel, and even public transportation. That's why the CCP is investing so much time and resources into the project. It's not just a way to make transactions easier, it's a way to keep the population under control. The CCP is effectively creating a digital dictatorship, where everyone is monitored and controlled by the state. But China is not the only country that is pursuing a CBDC. The United States, for example, is also investing heavily in the technology. In fact, the Federal Reserve recently announced that it would begin testing a digital dollar in 2022. The Fed says that the digital dollar is not meant to replace cash or even the paper dollar, but rather coexist with them. However, many experts believe that the digital dollar is really just a way for the government to control the US economy and its people. A CBDC gives the government complete control over the money supply and allows it to manipulate markets and economies with ease. The government can impose negative interest rates, restrict access to certain financial services, and even freeze bank accounts with a few keys. The EU has also been working on a CBDC for some time now, and is currently in the research and development phase. The European Central Bank has said that it could launch a digital euro by 2027. The UK, Canada, Sweden, South Africa, and several other countries are also exploring the possibility of issuing CBDCs, so it looks like a CBDC is not a matter of if but when. There are plenty of arguments against a CBDC. For one thing, it would give governments too much control over their citizens. A CBDC would allow governments to track and trace every transaction and even freeze bank accounts with a few keystrokes. Additionally, a CBDC could be used to implement negative interest rates, which would essentially punish people for holding on to their money. This could lead to a situation where people are incentivized to spend all of their money immediately, which would obviously cause all kinds of problems. Not to mention, ACBDC could be hacked or used to implement some kind of financial terrorism. Just look at what happened in the Ukraine in 2016 when Russian hackers gained access to the country as central bank and froze millions of dollars in bank accounts. However, despite all of these concerns, it seems like a CBDC is inevitable. Governments around the world are simply too greedy to give up the opportunity to control their citizens' money. The question is, what can you do to protect yourself? One way is to invest in cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum are decentralized, meaning that they are not controlled by any government or financial institution. This means that a government couldn't theoretically track your transactions or freeze your account if you hold your money in crypto. Another way to protect yourself is to buy some gold or silver. Precious metals have been used as money for centuries, and they are still a great way to store your wealth. Gold and silver cannot be devalued by a government, and they are always in demand. So if things ever get really bad, you can count on these assets to hold their value. You should also reduce your reliance on banks. Banks are financial institutions that are regulated by the government, which means that they are subject to government control. If a government ever decides to implement negative interest rates or other policies that you don't agree with, you could find yourself in a very bad position if you keep your money in a bank. Of course, this doesn't mean that you should completely cut ties with banks. There are still some legitimate uses for banks, but you should try to reduce your reliance on them as much as possible. As always, stay humble, stay informed, and above all, stay free. Thank you for watching.